Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness. Now, I live in California, and every year around this time we enter into fire season. It's just like any other season that people have in the country, whether it's winter, fall, spring, fire season is a reality for us here. So being prepared and being able to quickly grab the necessary items you need and go if an emergency happens, or in this case, if a fire comes into your community, is critical. It's just part of the culture here that we've all kind of gotten used to. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through and talk about 4 main things that you need to consider. Having items that are, by your door that you can quickly grab. If you have to evacuate quickly, having a to-do list or a checklist of things that you should grab. Maybe there's things that aren't with your gear like laptops or school gear, other things that you need to grab. What you should do as far as preparing your house if you have time, things that you can do to make a big difference when you return. And lastly, we'll talk about when you should leave. Now that's obviously an important discussion, but what we'll do in this video is we'll go through these 4 points. And a lot of this information I'm going to share with you is based on my own experience living here for the last 20 years and talking to people that have been more or less first responders that have helped in communities where people have been forced to evacuate and they've had to go to different points where they have to stay, and some of the observations they saw when helping this type of community. So first of all, let's talk about the items that you should have on hand ready to go if the emergency comes in. You get the call, the police are driving around your neighborhood telling people to evacuate. Fire moves very quickly, and you have to take it serious. It can move faster than you can. And so when you're being told to evacuate, it's important that you're ready to go. If you've ever been in an emergency situation where you're caught in a frenzy and you realize, oh, where's this, where's that? It's quick to forget things. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the items that we should probably have on standby. Now, this is what is commonly referred to a bug out bag, a go bag. In the emergency preparedness prepper community, we have different names for it. But the bottom line is this is a bag that has enough supplies to really take care of you for typically 3 days. There are things like change of clothes, different fire starter equipment, food, cooking utilities, different items. All these things are really important to help you survive, whether it's a sleeping bag, a tent, shelter of some type. And that's what you really need to think of when you begin to kind of start the whole process of what should we have ready. What I always tell people, and what we do in our own family, we're going to actually go through and revise our bags this weekend, because once the Santa Ana winds kick up in a couple of weeks, this is something we just have to be ready for. So what we typically do is we'll go through, and again, in our situation, let me just start off with this one, is medicine. For our family, we don't really have any medical needs, but if you do, make sure you have that either ready with your bags, or at least you know where it is so you can quickly grab it. A change of clothes. I've read a lot of stories that people anticipate they'd have to leave for 2 or 3 days from their home, ended up being 2 or 3 weeks. But having several change of clothes, underwear, different clothes, it's a really good idea to have these in a bag. A sleeping bag. Or at least a blanket. I mean, it's warm season right now, so I don't think a sleeping bag, obviously, big one's important. But, having these type of things, plates, forks, spoons that you can clean and wash off, some dish soap, little things like that. Just imagine really more or less a glorified camping trip if it came down to it. Now, I do realize a lot of the shelters out there, they will provide a lot of this stuff, but if you're not in a position, or if the systems are overloaded that usually provide that support, if it's not available, having these kind of things handy and ready are really important. So try to think, from that perspective. Imagine if, in a sense, you had a camp for a while. I personally keep the freeze-dried food in an area, and this is, hopefully that's in frame. This is Mountain House. It's a really popular freeze-dried food. I've got several different boxes from them, and I just like their food to begin with. I mean, it's not the best, but when it comes to freeze-dried, they're pretty good. All you have to do is boil water, and you've got these different high-caloric, somewhat nutritious meals that are filling. And so we have a lot of these ready, and of course we have the different items to be able to cook them, different stoves and stuff like that. So think about that, again, kind of from the perspective of imagine you're camping. Now, one of the things that I've heard a lot of times that a lot of people just overlook, and by the way, this is empty so I can move it around, but is a water storage, or multiple water storage containers. Now, these you can pick up online. Well, I haven't checked lately, but when I bought these, I think they're around 20 to 25 bucks. They hold 5 gallons. I've got a lot of these, and I like these because you can just literally grab them and go. And they've got, the little spout here when you unscrew this and turn around. They've got a water spigot. So again, talking to first responders that I have, they've been amazed at the fact that people throw so many things in their car, whether it's valuables, paintings, just random things, and they don't even have water. So Cannot recommend that enough. Now, this item is definitely on the pricey end if you don't have the budget for it, completely understandable. But again, I live in Southern California. It's just kind of become the new normal to have masks available that can filter out smoke. Now, some of these can get pricey. This particular company, Mirror Safety, and I'll post a link to these if you want to check them out. They run for around $250. I do work with another company. They provide also some masks that have industrial applications but can also be used for smoke, and these are full face masks as well. These run for, I think in the ballpark of around about 100 or so with the filters. So a lot cheaper than this, but obviously the quality difference is significant. These are a lot nicer, and they do have filters for these. I'll put a link, specifically for smoke if you're concerned, in the situation for that. And then they also have children's masks, and I've got these for our 3 kids in case we get in a situation where there's a lot of smoke. Now, one of the things you'll often hear is having documents ready. I have a safe in our house, and we keep all of our important documents ready. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to move these over here. But we've got, our titles, the different important medical documents, everything that's important to us that, should the house burn down, we have evidence and proof of, different things that are important. It's just in this simple manila folder. And again, I know exactly where this is in the vault. If we had to run out, this is one of the first things I would grab. There's just a lot of important information there, marriage certificate, etc. Another thing, and excuse me, got to sneeze. Another thing that's important to have on hand is cash. Obviously I have my credit cards, but I try to keep a loose amount of cash. I think somewhere around 600 usually in our vault, in 20s, 1s, 5s, 10s. I don't just put 6 $100 bills in there, because if you go somewhere and they can't break or make you change, that's going to be a problem. So imagine, a potential or possible scenario where you run out and, electricity's not online, the grid's down, and you're trying to buy something at a store. Maybe they'll take cash, they probably will, but credit card may be a different story. And this last item I'll mention as far as items that I personally have ready to go is some type of backup power source that is renewable, that you can charge. This is what's called a solar generator. These weigh about 25 pounds. And again, I'll post a link to these if you want to check them out. I've done a lot of reviews on this. It's from a company called Energy. I work with them. I like their products. But you can hook this into solar panels, and you can easily charge devices. Obviously, we will live in an electronic world where being able to power devices, if you had a run out, will be critical. So definitely recommend if you can. Again, that's another one of those budgetary items that some people obviously may or may not have the money for. And then, pets. Always consider your pets. A lot of people just think about themselves, their family, and, hey, we'll just grab the cat or the dog, but have some kind of dry food, water, a bowl or bowls for them that you can have, having a leash for them. We have a cat. I don't know if we're going to be able to put a leash, but, we have to think about, okay, if we got to run out, well, we're going to be taking the pets with us too. So make sure you factor that in as well. Let's talk about the items that you should probably have on a list of things to grab. I don't really have a long list because a lot of these items we have by the door, but there's some things that you probably use on a daily basis, but you're going to want to take that with you. And you won't remember in the moment when you have to run out the door. Things like a laptop, your kids' school material. If, most of us at the time of recording this video are homeschooling, not because we want to, but maybe because we have to. So having that material ready and on a list and knowing where they are, those items. So if you have time, if you have more time than just grabbing these items, and you say, hey, I also want to be able to get X, Y, and Z, have it on a list. In that moment, how many times have you stressed out and you totally forgot a lot of things? But having that defined on a list, and I would keep that list with the items. We're going to produce a list for our family this weekend. We're going to go through and review what's important to us so that we can grab it. And one other point before I move on to point number 3 that I forgot to say in point number 1 is make sure you keep your vehicles at least gassed up, probably about 3/4 of a tank at all times. Typically I tell people half, but I've known a lot of people in the past that have gotten caught in fires and they've gotten stuck for hours. And if you're on half a tank or lower, it would be horrible if you're with your family and all of a sudden you run out of gas on the freeway because you didn't have enough gas. So think about that in addition to the list of items that you definitely want to have on hand. Now this next list of items is a list, this is point number 3, of items that tell you what to do if you have time. Again, we covered 1 and 2. I'm kind of going in priority of, have items 1 ready, have items 2, the list, that's a good, if you have the time, do it. But number 3 is a list of things to do if time permits. If you have propane tanks on the side of your house, if you run off a propane tank, turn it off. If you have a lot of stuff in the refrigerator, think about it. If power goes down for several days or weeks and you can't get back to your house, imagine all that food just rotting in there. The smell would be horrible. If time permits, go through, take it all out, toss it in the trash. Another thing is if you have time, seal up your windows. If you know they kind of have a leak on them or the air kind of comes in and out, seal them up with duct tape. Definitely wouldn't be a bad idea to have some kind of tape around your house that you could seal off windows and doors. A lot of times these houses in these areas get a lot of smoke damage. People come home and their house smells like smoke. If you can take and wrap your air conditioner with garbage bags and just seal it off, anything that allows gases to come into your house, any vents, focus on that again if time permits. And that would just be one more thing that'll be easier to deal with when you come home, is not having a house obviously that smells like smoke. And the next point is, when should you depart? Well, the answer is hopefully as soon as you can. Unfortunately, again, you've seen this, videos online of people getting stuck and a fire will come raging over the freeway they're on or the road. They're all trapped inside their vehicles. If you know fire is in your area and it's a threat, that it could come your way, and obviously the challenge with fire is it moves quickly. So you may go to bed assuming fire is in one location and wake up and it's, in your backyard. So think about that. If it's within your ability or your, resources to leave town, highly consider it. Otherwise, whenever the order to evacuate is given, do not waste time. Move as quickly as you can, because the fire can move a lot faster than you. Now, this last tip doesn't really have to do with your personal safety, but it does have to do with the fact that if your house does burn down, you should have a plan in place. Now, a lot of people obviously have fire insurance policies, especially if you have a loan, it's a requirement, but very few people know what really happens in that situation if your house burns down. When you go to your insurance company and say, hey, we had X, Y, and Z in your house or my house, I'd like to get reimbursed for that. What they're going to do is say, okay, what items do you have? And we'll pay you accordingly. Now, this is an article that I found on Reddit years ago. It's super helpful, and I'll post a link to it. An insurance adjuster shared his experience and told people how to prepare for that situation. And one of the things that he pointed out is that if you say, I had a toaster, well, what they're going to do is say, okay, you had a toaster. So they're going to go find the cheapest toaster they can and give you the money for that. If they find a $4 toaster at Walmart, they're only going to compensate you. But imagine if you had some really nice $100 toaster. Well, that doesn't matter to them unless you can prove it. And it goes for every single thing else, in your house, computers, electronics, furniture. Think about it. If you say I have this, again, their job is not to, give you the best or, the highest amount of refund. Quite the opposite. Their goal is to give you the least amount. So it's a good idea if you don't have all the receipts. And I just do everything on credit cards. So I don't know if that's going to be good enough to take to a claims adjuster, but one tip that I found that is something that I can do, and I'll probably be doing it actually again this weekend as the fire season is approaching us, is going through the house again. And I try to do this on an annual basis. And I take my camera and I just record everything. I go room by room by room. And I open up the cabinets and I look through and I thumb through things and I show everything. And I say, okay, this is this computer. It has these features. And I try to go through and get everything on video. Then I can take that video and I can stop every room I do and upload it to YouTube and just unlist it, or put it as a private video. That way it's backed up to the cloud, more or less, to YouTube. So if God forbid our house burns down, I can simply provide the insurance, or I can rather go through that video and itemize, and I can show that as evidence. It helps. Will I absolutely guarantee that you're going to get your money back based on the video? I don't know, but it's going to get you way ahead versus just your words saying, well, I had a mink coat hanging in the closet. I mean, they're not going to be able to prove that unless you can actually show it. So I know we've run through a lot. Again, I have done other videos in the past. I'll post a link in the cards above that go into more about protecting your home for fire season. But I think these are practical tips. If you were to follow these, this is going to get you ahead of 95% of the crowd. Again, I've had to talk to a lot of people that have gone in communities and helped where there's been fire, and they were always shocked how unprepared people were with just even basic things, again, like water or any kind of clothing. And again, I know people usually run out the door because they're not prepared when fire comes, and you don't want to be one of those people. Be prepared. Simple things you can do now. You don't have to spend a lot of money. The other items that you can, if you choose to spend more, that are going to be nice to have but not critical. I would definitely at least recommend some masks, and if you can't afford those, probably do some research on whether it's wetting a bandana or something to be able to cover your face. That gets you again ahead of being in a situation where you have nothing. If you have any feedback, thoughts, questions, post that in the comments section below. And as always, stay safe out there.